Hey guys, we're back. We had to change our
Setting
location.
location
It got a little bit noisy. We're having Costa Rican holidays, and we're also trying to hide behind the sun
a
and
little bit,
a
but
little
it's
bit. We're right behind a tree, so might have to shift in a little bit. But please bear with
bear
us.
with us. And the most important is we're having a lot of fun in doing this, and we're enjoying the moment. So it's
Exactly.
always for improvement, and we thank you for um, for you watching this. So Vero, we were discussing some of the steps to incorporate the businesses in Costa Rica. We were talking about the importance of relying on a good network of professionals, ranging from accountants, attorneys, and advisors that would help you to navigate the bureaucracy and the different procedures in the Costa Rican legality sphere of starting the company. And once the registration has been confirmed, you would go and have your legal identification number, which is the corporation ID that will be forever and always moving on your identification to do your tax write-off, to give as a indicator for your company. And this is used for all different legal, accounting, commercial, tax purposes moving forward. Um, Once you have this identification number, is the time to register register, sorry, the company in the Ministry of Finance or the Treasury Department that is happening a current updating in Costa Rica. So probably if you're gonna watch this by August, it's gonna change into a new software. So it's important to just get to understand this, because there's gonna be like a period of like a buffer period for the following rest of the year, just for you to know, for the rest of 2025, in which the Ministry of Finance will start deploying all the implementations of the new software into the community of business owners. So it's gonna happen during the rest of the year, during the rest of 2025. The Ministry of Finance is gonna deploy this new software, so you would have new features, and it's actually gonna be more intuitive and easy to operate with your company. So you could give maybe an example of how to use the ID to write off your taxes. Maybe that now that you are a business owner, like what in which occasions or instances you use this.
Yeah, that's definitely something I noticed has been very simplified in Costa Rica, and we really appreciate it. Whenever you go to a new store and you would like want to purchase items that for your business, let's just say that you're purchasing. Uh, we are in property management, so we purchase toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning supplies. Any purchases like that can be written off. You have to register with each new store once with this no, number, which in is
Your ID,
ID number, which here we call cédula jurídica, and then your accountant can take this information, which is sent to a certain email that you've registered just for that sole purpose, and then can submit that to the authorities, and then that amount is then written off as an business expense. So this process has been really simplified here in Costa Rica, which has made running a business affairs much simpler.
yeah, that's good. And it's important as well to contemplate that Costa Rica, it's a officially now, according to the OCDE, we are ranking in as a more industrialized country, what is used to call like a first world country, but you are still in Latin America. So there are many um, instances in which softwares were not the most updated version versus, for example, North America or Europe. But the country has made a lot of efforts recently to kind of catch up on having offers and services more available and intuitive to users, like business owners, for example. So it's good that all these implementations are taking place because the country is moving forward, and now we're attracting more investment. There are many things happening, at least for example in the northern Pacific of Costa Rica. So it's good that the government is trying to put a quota on the development of more efficient systems and centralized solutions for everybody, like residents, investors, etc. The ID number that we are talking about is gonna be your way to, as I say, like consult your taxes, do any commercial operation, and in some essence is the last piece of information that you will get from the registry and from the finance from the Ministry of Finances. But if you, depending on the commercial activity that you're gonna perform in Costa Rica, you would need to do other steps or contemplate other aspects. For example, the municipal license of patent that is required to operate under specific commercial activities. For example, opening a physical business would require most likely a license to for the operation versus a with a non-physical facility. For example, a company that does not have physical facilities, you don't need to have a municipal license. If you're gonna hire somebody, you would probably need to save up some money. Another aspect to take into consideration are the Social Security, which is a mandatory enrollment for the registration of employees and into their payment for Social Security contributions. You would need to contemplate this as a very important aspect because, for example, having employees in Costa Rica could be considered quite expensive, or so you need to run all the numbers correctly and choose the best way to make the operation sustainable, even if like in the case that you are starting.
Yeah, if I may add, since we have experience in
Yeah.
this field, there's two types of employees and that you would need to consider. We can definitely discuss this further in another episode. There is the registered employee where you need to pay their health insurance and register them with the national registry, and the costs are higher. And these types of employees would be the employees that you would need to have on a regular schedule, um, working a certain hours. Or there's the other type of employee that you can hire as on contractual basis for professional work, as professional professional contractors. For there's no defined, there could be the defined timeline and the type of work that they need to get done, but there isn't exactly the hours where they need to fulfill their duties. And they need to include the 13% tax as part of their services, because it's their responsibility then to claim, register as self-employed and claim those taxes to the government.
Yeah.
So these are the two main differences that you would need to consider if you were interested in getting employees here to work for you in Costa Rica.
Yes, and it's important because you would not need you can have this different figures, but it's very important to understand the implications of hiring somebody under the figure of professional services versus full-time employee, because each one has its own implications, as I said. Um, and yeah, basically, it's important just to have this in mind with the license of the municipality and the social security, the compliance, of course, with labor code. You have to be in compliance with all the salary regime, the labor rights. We have vacations. We have the aguinaldo, which is like the 13th month that has to be paid to full-time employees, not to professional service freelancers, severance, and others. Once you have all this set up, you can have a the beginning basically of the operation. So for that, You have selected your legal structure, you have done the incorporation, you have obtained your ID, you have selected your tax registration, and if applicable, you will have to undergo the social security and the municipality license. I think that this covers pretty much all the first steps into the processes of establishing and incorporating a company in the country. But if you are a non-resident or a like a person that is still not with non-resident status in the country, you can still start a company in Costa Rica. Um, it's very important that you have established a solid relationship with a attorney. We have talked about this in the last episode about the importance of getting to know your attorneys, your accountants, because but especially when you want to start a company and you're still not a resident, you would need to give away the power for this person to start. So it's important to have a good relationship with your attorney, because when you are not a resident in the country, you can start your company with just a valid passport, and you have to be legally present in the country at the beginning to start the registration with the notary and the stamp showing that you have come to the country in a legal manner, etc. And then after that, you can submit a what is called a power of attorney. This is a physical document that your attorney would have, in which you authorize your attorney to conduct processes on your behalf. The power of attorney is signed in front of a notary in their country, and would be apostilled or legalized through some channels if their country is not part of specific conventions, and has to be translated into Spanish, and will need to be registered through the national registry. And some tax ID requirements for shareholders and board members, if they are not Costa Ricans or if they are not residents. So for you to be part of a board or a company shareholder, foreign individuals need a tax identification number, which is called NITE, from our Ministry of Finance or Treasury. So this tax ID is different from the company's ID, and this could be obtained once you have the passport and the power of attorney. You don't need a residency card when you start a company. What you just need is the tax ID to start. So that is very important, because people think whether they need to to have already an approved residency in the country to start a company. Is That's not the case. But there are certain limitations, though. The executive roles, like managers and some is specific labor contracts, cannot be granted if there is not a residency or a work permit. So, for example, salary roles of management positions are could only be given to people that already have the work permit, and the foreigners cannot legally employed or paid as Costa Rican residents unless they hold a residency permit with a work condition. So these are just specific limitations. And another thing that maybe I would love to know, if you had like any important experience about the opening of bank accounts in the country, because that could be a matter for some people, have been a challenge. So would you care to share maybe any experience or anything that you've heard, maybe not to you, but for other residents, that sorry, foreigners that were in their process of getting a residency or starting businesses, about their opening of bank accounts?
Yeah, so I think depending on where you live, which bank you work with, well, the availability of banks would depend on where you're settled. Not all major banks are have branches in every town. So we're really lucky that here in Playa del Coco we have a few of the major banks, and we just had two recently that opened up as our city keeps expanding, or some town I should call it, because it's quite small. One of them is BAC, right? I'm not sure what BAC even exactly stands for, but everyone just
It's
knows it as.
Banco de America Central,
Okay,
Bank of
okay,
Central
Bank of
America.
Central America. Interesting, yeah. And actually, it's a great bank because we have some remote workers working from other parts of Central America right now, and we pay them through BAC. So that's they also opened up an account there, and so transferring money was very simplified.
Good.
And the other one is Lafise as well, and they're great because they give out loans. The process varies, as you mentioned. I think that we before we became temporary residents, we opening up a bank account just with your, and that's something that also a lot of our owners who have corporations as um, part of purchasing their properties have certain limitations with opening up bank accounts. The process is a little bit more difficult. You have to present certain documents. I think you have to present earnings from back home and financial statements, and you have certain limits as well. And you can not open a bank account with just any bank. And from what I've heard, that banks that you can open up an account with, which are Banco Nacional, which is one of the main banks here that most Costa Ricans bank with, and Banco de Costa Rica as well. Those are the two main banks. Their system is quite outdated, and it's a lot more difficult to send money and transfer money. And also something to keep in mind is that Banco Nacional is the main bank that most Costa Ricans use, as I mentioned already, but that plays a large role as whenever you have to do transfers in many countries, transfer from bank to bank is free. And here it's not. It's about $2 to $3 every per transfer if you want to do an immediate transfer. I believe. Am I correct? I think if you do a transfer that takes 24 hours or
Yeah, there
so.
are. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't have the exact numbers. I know that we still have different layers or thresholds depending on the amount, of course, and for example, for amounts below 100,000 colones, which is around $200, you could do simpe, which is like the equivalent of a
Like and well, for Canadians it will be like an Interactive transfer, and for Americans it will be like Zello, I believe, right? That's what they
yeah.
use like for transferring to any bank.
Yeah, but if you need to make like a larger amount, there could be some requirements indeed, and it could take time and money. And another thing to take into account when opening a company in the country is about the banking system, because indeed it's a non very updated system in general. It's I would say it's quite old industry or old fashioned industry, and you could see a very strong difference between publicly owned banks and privately owned banks. As Vero was saying, like this BAC or La Ficia are private owned banks, whereas Banco Nacional, National Bank, or Banco de Costa Rica, Costa Rican banks are publicly owned banks. So you would see like substantial differences in the way that they give customer service, the way that they processes work, etc. And but something that is very, very, very important to consider is um, the due diligence that these banks undergo. For example, as you were saying, like the source of funds, the proof of legal entity, the company purpose, the identification, verification, all these are indeed real. And the banking system, the financial system is very severe in the due diligence and the KYC. So just for you to know that it's gonna happen eventually.
And if I can just add one thing to what you just said, the reason for that and something to keep in mind is that Costa Rica has really strong anti money laundering laws. And that's one of the reasons why you really have to you undergo a severe scrutiny when purchasing a property or investing, they're going to require legal documents as to where and how you obtained your financial earnings.
Yeah, and we can summarize some best practices for you to have in mind. One of this is have a legal representative, a Costa Rican legal representative, which is like a lawyer, a resident, or partner that can be legally representing the company and sign any documentation, either by the power of attorney or special powers that you can give to this person. um, as Vero has mentioned before at the beginning of the video, it's not about the process itself, but about who handles the process, like the level of expertise and the wealth of knowledge that this professional has. For example, the notary, the attorneys, the accountant. These people um, could be your deal breakers or makers in the opening of successful accounts in the country. So everything related to documentations and processes, bureaucracy, you gotta do a thoughtful searching of the people that you want to work with, because that will be detrimental for the success of the incorporation of your company. And another best practice is about, for specifically for foreigners, is that you can separate the ownership from the management if it's needed. So if the foreigner can own shares, while a Costa Rican resident is named as the manager or director for practical matters. So, for example, you could still own the entirety of the company and have this person as the manager or director and just take care of the operation while you still preserve the ownership of the entity. And as we have just mentioned, it's gonna be an enhanced bank compliance. So you gotta be very patient and trust that the process would mean like a thoughtful due diligence, and just gather any personal and business information in advance and work with professional people that are familiar with this, so you can have a good experience. We have just some common pitfalls that we would like you to avoid, um, related, for example, with the issue of wanting to get the residency before the incorporation of the company. This is not necessary. You don't have to be a resident before incorporating the company. You can start your own company before, by just having the power of attorney and the valid passport, and have a legal visit that is going to be recorded through migration into the country, and just start a process. Um, Another issue that we have encountered is signing without a legal entry stamp um, is not valid, though the notary cannot proceed. So you have to be legally in the country, have a stamp demonstrating this for the incorporation of the company. Related to the POA, the power of attorney, just make sure that you are working with a good attorney and that gives you all the information in advance, because an invalid POA can cause a lot of delays and could be a hassle if it was not handled properly. And another issue is expecting to work or receive a salary without residency. As we said, you cannot receive a salary without the residency. So you can start and you can be the owner, as we said, but you have to, in that case, be only expecting to get the capital gains, but not a salary for that matter. And the last pitfall could be ignoring your tax registration, or for foreigners. Remember that every foreigner would have a local tax ID, which is called NITE and ITE, before, in that case, having the residency. That tax ID would suffice in that case for the incorporation and the operation of the commercial activities for you as the owner or shareholder. I don't know, Beto, if you have any comment um, about this last
Um,
information.
no, I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, we can just dive into some just general information that the minimum investment amount is $150,000 US dollars. I would love to say this because this could be an affordable entry amount for households, couples, families to start a company, or not even has to be in the creation of the corporation, but owning property in in the country for that amount would suffice to start a process to obtain the residency. Um, and this has been reduced because the threshold used to be $200,000. So could be in real estate, could be business capital as a shareholder or business creator for forestry projects. So for the Ministry of Environment, if you want to be uh, helping some protection of forests, etc. So you can make an amount, a donation for that amount, and could be part of the categories. And if you want to start investing in stocks or securities in the Costa Rican stock market, that could be as well an equivalency. But I personally feel that it's not going to be like a fancy.
Very profitable, maybe.
Yeah, it's not a very ideal stock market, to be honest. But yeah, for the investor residency application process, you have to prepare the documentations. It's very similar to everything we've discussed before: the passport, the registration form from consular registration form, the payment of the fees. The documents has to be translated into Spanish. There's going to be a criminal background check and a valid passport, of course. And once you have all the information, you submit the applications through the direction of General Migration and Foreign Affairs, that will receive all the information and do the scrutiny, and you basically have to wait for the resolution, which could take up to a year, to be honest. And temporary residency is granted for 2 years, and it's renewable as long as the investment remains valid in the
Oh,
country.
sorry, just getting some bugs. If I might actually add,
Yes.
sorry guys, I'm getting attacked by all kinds of bugs here. Because that's how we became temporary residents, and we're going to be applying soon for permanent residence. But after 2 years, you renew every 2 years, and it's important to know that you still need to own at least $150,000 of an investment of some sort at the time of reapplying. And after your second reapplication to to renew your temporary residence, after 3 years in total of being temporary resident, you can apply to become a permanent resident. Now that I'm not sure how long that takes. Once you've been approved, I think the process is much simpler and it takes less time, given that you submit all the documents correctly the first time and then so forth. And once you're a temporary resident after 3 years, the great news is that you don't need to keep applying because you're basically allowed to remain in Costa Rica and come back whenever you want. And you don't have to, you don't need the $150,000 investment anymore to, you just remain a permanent resident.
Yeah, I think that maybe in a future episode we can invite some migration attorney or somebody with a more um, legal expertise on the matter, because this is definitely a topic.
Yes, and maybe I can discuss our own experience.
Yeah. Some benefits about the application to the residency is that it includes spouses on and sorry and dependents under 25 years old, or people dependents with disabilities, for example. And the resident, as I said, can own and manage the company, but cannot work as an employee unless the business structure allows for that exception, but it has to be contemplated in the process. You must stay in Costa Rica at least 1 day per year to maintain your residency, and you will be eligible for permanent residency after 3 years of holding the investor status, as Vero has said. And in here, we can as well talk about some common pitfalls that you can avoid by just getting to know this. One is the inadequate proof of investment. As we said, the immigration requires the certified validation and valuation of the investment by a professional. So it has to be, if it's going to be in real estate or in the company, has to be like a security of the investment in the valuation by a professional, not only by you. It has to be confirmed by a Costa Rican professional for that matter. The absence of legalization of or the certification of the foreign documents. Many people tend to avoid this, maybe because of a rush, or they think that everything is okay. But if the documents haven't been validated, there could be a delay in the process or a void in the application itself. The Another mistake is assuming rental income that the rental income qualifies. The rental income alone is not an eligible investment.
Mhm.
Another mistake could be that assumption that the rental income would qualify, but the rental income alone is not an eligible investment unless it's tied to a property purchase above the threshold. And a last mistake is not hiring a qualified immigration lawyer or a person that is gonna help you, a gestor, because this process is very bureaucratic and can stall without any expert help. I think maybe in here you would give more context, as I am Costa Rican born and raised, so I never have a familiar process with this, but I would say that I would argue it's very important to, as you have multiple times said, it's about knowing the person that you're working with, and it will help you in the process.
Yes, 100%. I think it's really important. Well, I've heard of many different cases of people waiting years and years, and that same situation happened to me. My husband received his residence, and we applied at the same time. So we had the absolutely same documents, and we couldn't really understand why my case was taking longer. Uh, Thankfully, because we do speak Spanish, there was a place in Liberia where we could go, an office, and we can raise our concerns, and they did something, and the case moved forward. There was some sort of problem that had happened. We're not even sure what it is, because what happens is that all of the emails and the communications of what's the next step and what's required and maybe what's wrong is being sent to only one person, and that is the legal representative that you've hired to help you. Normally, you do need to hire someone because the process is very confusing, and it's also, there's a lot of steps which another person that you give permission to can take care of on your behalf. And especially if you're not in the country, like, you would still need to come for certain steps, but you don't have to do the entire process and go to the office and wait for hours. Yeah, we can definitely talk about it more, but it's a process for sure. Once you get it moving the first time and you do get your first temporary residence, as I said, afterwards it's quite simple. And we've been told that we don't even need to hire someone anymore. There's companies that still charge half of what they charge. It's approximately, last time we were applying, it was costing around 2,500 USD to hire a professional company per person, mind you. I think it might be a little bit cheaper for dependents or for children, but it's not that much cheaper, maybe around 2,000. And it's all fine, as I said, but if your case gets stuck and they're not working actively on resolving it and you do not get it within a year or so. I know now it's taking a little bit longer as well. So if you're thinking about it, I would say definitely get that going, even if you're not living here full time. Start thinking about the process. So with that said, we have been we are at the end. We've been disturbed a lot. We apologize for any of the noises. Hopefully, it wasn't too loud with the mic. Uh, trying to buffer some of the sounds.
Yeah,
We had lots of bikes. It's been very active today, so we've been trying to maintain our attention after moving, but it's been a little bit challenging. But thank you so much, Santi, for going through all of this, and we will see you in the next episode.
yeah. Thank you very much for taking the time to watching this episode. We are gonna cover many more topics about the development and go in different routes. So we hope that you find this interesting. And as Vero said, it's been our first episode, so we're still figuring out the best time for
Yes.
shooting. We're we're covering. We're trying to do our best in shooting and making it funny and interesting for you guys. So thank you for your support and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.